Hi, everyone. Um, Welcome in. We're just gonna let people roll in. Um, we'll be sharing some images from the exhibition as we wait for all of our attendees to arrive, before we start our conversation. Let's see.
I'm not seeing the posters.
I see the posters.
Now they do, yeah. Yeah, these are all posters from the exhibition, Graphic Resistance, 7 Decades of California Posters for Peace and Justice. Uh, Literally, they may not have all been born in California, but they've all been living in California, producing posters in California for the majority of their professional lives. And it's just quite astounding how many topics and how many different styles and how many, issues are revealed. Not only the issues, but some of the issues that were from the 50s and the 60s are still here, in the 21st century. Issues, racism and sexism and homophobia and immigration crises and war. So these some often people are surprised how posters they think are made yesterday were really made decades ago. This is Carlos, is one of our speakers tonight. This one, Welcome to America's Finest, really got the city fathers and mothers of San Diego angry because they were trying to make it into this America's finest tourist city. And there were this poster that got on the front page of all the newspapers said, Welcome to America's finest tourist plantation. Again, dealing with immigration and people being deported. So it's quite quite well, I'm one of the curators, so I'm biased, but it's a very revealing and powerful exhibition, which is in the Mercado La Paloma. If you have never been there, I highly recommend it. It is a food court that's a project of Esperanza Community Housing Corporation, which is a a nonprofit which is based on their headquarters is where the exhibition is, 365655 South Grand Avenue in Los Angeles. It's near it's just east of USC and slightly northeast of the Coliseum and the Natural History Museum and the New Lucas Museum. So it's a food court downstairs, nonprofit offices upstairs. And the food court was just called by the Los Angeles Times #1 of the top 100 restaurants in LA. So you can feast your eyes and feast your palate at the same time. And ironically, we were asked to kind of put our most political posters kind of not on the main drag, but in a little bit off the beaten path, which is really is it's too small a place for there to be no place that's off the beaten path, but not on the main drag. And the New York Times came just a couple of days ago and did an article on one of the newest restaurants. And guess what's in clear front and center in one of the pictures in the New York Times article are our the most political posters in the entire show. So I think it looks great, and we'll put that website. I just found that out today, so I'll put that website on our next poster of the week, and so everybody can read the article, go to the restaurant, buy the food, and see the exhibition. It's open 7 days a week, and it's free to enter. So I encourage you to go down there. So how are we doing?
I think, yeah, I'm ready to get started. I'll go ahead. Hi, everyone. I'm having a bit of some video troubles, but my name is Summer. I'm CSPG's Office and Social Media Manager, and I just wanted to say hello and welcome you to California Dreamin, a virtual conversation with artists and activists with us at CSPG. Right now, as Carol said, we're viewing a couple slides from our exhibition, which is on view now at Mercado La Paloma. Carol will be moderating our conversation, but please feel free to use the chat to share your thoughts and feelings, any opinions, any ideas that pop up, or any inspirations as our panelists chat with each other, and use the Q&A feature to share any questions you might have, because we will have a dedicated portion of time at the end of the webinar for audience questions. Um, we are also recording this webinar. None of you as audience members are on camera, so you don't maybe need to worry so much about being recorded, but just something to keep in mind. And then I'd also like to invite folks to please join us at another graphic resistance event in June, actually next week, Saturday, June 6th, CSPG will be hosting two free events at Mercado La Paloma where our exhibition is up. First, Emily will be doing our archives director, Emily Sulzer, will be doing a guided tour of the exhibition at 10 a.m. that Saturday. And then later in the day, we'll be doing a free printmaking workshop with teaching artist Ernesto Vasquez. And I have dropped the link to register for those events in the chat. So if those things sound exciting to you, please join us. We'd love to see you there. Everything is free. We want to have you there. And with that, I will pass it to Emily. Has a few things to share as well.
Hi. I also wanted to acknowledge that Naili Kobo is not able to join us. I don't know if that was mentioned yet, that she had a family emergency, so we're proceeding. Um, we want to thank our funders, the Department of Cultural Affairs, City of Los Angeles, the LA County Department of Arts and Culture, and the Getty Foundation for helping support this exhibition and related programming. So I'll pass it to you, Carol.
I thank you all. My name is Carol Wells. I'm the founder and executive director of the Center for the Study of Political Graphics, which is an activist, educational, and research archive that collects and exhibits posters relating to diverse movements for social change. With more than 90,000 human rights posters going from over 100 countries, going back to the 19th century, and the most recent one is probably this week. We are the largest independent political poster collection in the world. We're not affiliated with a university, government agency, museum, and that makes us a little more immune to censorship, but it also makes us a lot harder to raise funds. So keep that in mind when you're looking to support grassroots organizations that are support your point of view. Political posters make visible what power would prefer to keep hidden. In an era where history itself has become contested terrain, when movements are erased, struggles misremembered, and past victories reversed, the poster serves as material witness, a form of collective memory. Protest posters are calls to action. And we're very lucky that this afternoon to have two artists and activists. They are with us today. Unfortunately, as Emily mentioned, the Nayeli Kobo, she's an incredible young activist, is not able to be with us today. But hopefully, we will get a really, and I'm confident we will have a really exciting conversation. So I first want to introduce. Actually, I'm going to read both of their bios, and maybe we could have their art shown while I'm reading their bio. Which one do you have on first, Summer? Do you have Nancy's or Carlos? Which is
I
easier?
have Nancy's.
So Nancy Hom is an award-winning San Francisco-based artist, writer, curator, arts consultant, and community leader who empowers and connects people through art and engagement. Born in China and raised in New York City, where she attended Pratt Art Institute, After graduating in 1974, Nancy moved to the San Francisco Bay Area and found her niche in cultural work. Through her posters, illustrations, installations, mandalas, poetry, and curatorial work, Nancy has used the arts to affirm the histories, struggles, and contributions of communities of color. Since 2012, she has created over 24 large-scale mandalas on various topics that offer reflections on change, interdependence, and common purpose. Many of them involve community participation. Nancy has worked extensively with the Asian American movement, empowering and connecting people through art and engagement. She served as the executive director of Kearney Street Workshop from 1995 to 2003. Founded in 1972, Kearney Street Workshop is the oldest Asian American and Pacific Islander multidisciplinary arts organization in the country. And I hope that you will talk more about that during this hour. Um, Nancy has also nurtured the creative and organizational growth of over a dozen Bay Area arts organizations. I want to know more about those too. And her artistic and literary works are published in several anthologies and magazines. Her art is in the permanent collections of many museums, including San Francisco MoMA, the Oakland Museum of California, and the Smithsonian, and of course, the Center for the Study of Political Graphics. So thank you. And the art that we've been looking at is astounding. I wish we had all of it. We have some of them, and not all of them. And now I want to introduce Carlos Callejo. He was born in El Paso, Texas, and moved to East LA when he was 9. He's a public artist, muralist, printmaker, and activist who's produced over 100 murals and countless posters since the, I guess, late 60s, early 70s. He has served as art director, curator, and coordinator for numerous projects, often working with students and youth nonprofits to use mural painting to combine art and social work. In 1968, when a junior in high school, he joined 15,000 other Chicano students, mainly in East LA, but as far west as Venice High School, to protest their inferior education by participating in the mass walkouts, also called the blowouts. The demands to the LA Board of Education included curriculum changes, bilingual education, and hiring Mexican American teachers and administrators. After graduating from Cal State LA, he began teaching silkscreen workshops to youth. He then began painting murals in the Estrada courts of which is a low-income housing community in Boyle Heights. Most of his murals can be found in Texas, California, and in New Mexico, but they're also in Cuba, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Italy. I think the largest, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos, I think the largest is a 5,000 square foot mural called Our History in the atrium of the El Paso, Texas County Courthouse.
That's correct.
Correct? Good. Um, Carlos started designing posters for the Chicano movement in the 70s, and his screen prints also covered gentrification, healthcare as a human right, political prisoners, immigration, and deportations. And this is not just now, we're talking back in the 70s. The Chicano moratorium, Native Americans, police brutality, and boycotts such as Coors Beer, and many, many more issues. I'm proud to say that his posters are exclusively in the collection of the Center for the Study of Political Graphics. We had the foresight to grab him while he still had them, which raises something that we were talking about off screen that both Nancy and Carlos did not, and many other artists. I keep hearing this a lot. Artists seem to not value the political posters that they make when they make them, and they don't keep them. Even Rupert Garcia, who made posters for the Chicano moratorium in 1970, he didn't keep any. And he'd been then trying to scrounge them around, but people at that time, they were valuable and they weren't going to give them up so easily. So I'm just very curious why, I mean, tell about, you know, why you gave them away without keeping them or even photographing them. And have you tried to get some of them back?
Who goes first?
Go for it. Go for it, Carlos.
Uh, yeah, I guess it's sad to say, but sometimes as artists, as political artists or community artists, we used to look at more the poster, more the what I call the agitprop art, agitational propaganda type of art, not not considered like in the fine arts arena. And so that's kind of unfortunate because they very much could be, it could be. So I think for in my case, it's not that I gave it that importance. It's just that I was doing so many. I mean, my main purpose was to pass the word to the community, get the information across to the audience, to the vast audience, and not necessarily to try to get credit or to be recognized as a graphic artist. It was just basically the importance was to pass the message. So you didn't put that much emphasis on that importance. And then not only that, I think that back then, when I started doing my silk screen kind of work, it, it was very left wing type of radical type of messages that we we would get persecuted if anybody would find out we were doing that. Especially like for instance some of the old posters for the CLA, which was Chicano Liberation Front, which was kind of a clandestine groups. So now I could say that conveniently and safe. But when we put posters of that kind, the powers that be or the policing type of agencies were after anybody doing things like that. So that's another reason why you never put a lot of attention or brought attention to yourself, because you sometimes become a target. So sometimes you would try to leave that type of art alone. In a nutshell.
Nancy, you were nodding your head a lot. Do you have things to add?
Yeah, I totally can relate. Back in the 70s, it was, I joined Kearney Street Workshop in 1974. And the culture at that time was power to the people, art for the people, and everything was for the people, not ourselves. And we didn't even sign our names in the beginning to a lot of the work. And actually we were frowned upon if we even said, called attention to ourselves. So it took me a long time before I signed my full name to the artwork. And like Carlos said, we were so busy doing them, and it was all to be put up in storefronts or, to be used, that we just hurried up and gave the whole edition away. And it wasn't until a few years later when I started silk screening at Soul Arts Cultural Center that the art director said, you can keep a few for yourself. And you don't even have to have the words on it. You can keep it as your own art piece if you feel like it expresses what you want to express. And that's when I started thinking more about it can be a poster for its own sake, and it can also be something I cherish as my own art form.
This kind of conversation started with both of you already having made a political commitment to use your talents and your creativity for justice. How did that how did that come about? People aren't born that way. Things in their life tend to make them that way or provoke them to become that way. And so, Nancy, how would you describe your development?
Well, it started in college. I went to Pratt Institute from 1968 to 1971, and those were very tumultuous years, politically, socially, culturally. Everything was happening around that time. So I joined a school newspaper while I was in college and ran it for 3 years, covered everything that was happening on campus and outside of campus. And we're looking at I'll just run down some things that were happening then. Martin Luther King was shot. The Black Panther Party was really in full swing. There were race riots everywhere. Attica uprising in the prisons, anti-war movement, bra burnings, draft card burnings, My Lai massacre, Cambodia invasion. I mean, it goes on and on. And me covering all that stuff, uh, you know, politicized me. I joined the anti-war movement. And I also never finished a semester because we were all protesting in the streets for something or another, and even on campus against our own university structure. And so when I got out of college, I wanted to do something that would make a difference to a community. I wasn't going to be a fine artist somewhere in the museum world. And I started joining the Asian American movement then. And then from there, things started blossoming and percolating until it became clear that this was going to be my life career.
That's great. Great. Carlos?
Okay, let's see if I can remember the question. I guess it's just basically what motivated me to do art.
Well, what motivated you to do art, but also what motivated you to do political art?
Well, let's see. God, let me start from the beginning. As growing up as a little boy, as my formative years, I had see, man, a lot of people seem to think, oh, they give me credit for saying like, aren't you lucky? You've been blessed. You're doing work that you like to do work, and you're an artist. You've been blessed with this art talent and stuff. And people don't realize that in a way, for me, I look at it not just as a blessing, but also as a curse, because it was my form of expression. As a formative child, I used to have a problem where I used to have a stuttering problem. I still probably do. I used to stutter a lot, so there was a complex. I used to have a complex of me verbalizing my ideas. So I think that that's what kind of motivated for expression. I used to use the visual arts a lot, and so a lot of times I would try to be dissecting what I was feeling. Not that there was political stuff, but sometimes it used to come out as political, like the indoctrination that I was feeling with the educational system and the mass media, and how it was influencing me for rejecting my culture, my Mexican culture. So some of those images what I showed, and it was more of me dissecting what was going on in my life, when in fact a lot of people, people looked at it as political. So I think that's sort of what motivated the political end of it. I think early on, especially more by college, university days, my imagery was very almost confrontational, where I didn't want to make the viewer make his or her own interpretation of what the artist was trying to portray, and so it was very like in your face type of imagery. Later on, as you mature, I started getting more diplomatic. That's not to say that you sell yourself out of the issue, but you become you get the imagery not more not confrontational. You just got to put the image out there, but sort of question the subject matter, and that isn't anyway. That's sort of what kind of influenced me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned when Nancy, you had your list of the things that motivated you, and I was thinking we have posters of every single one of those issues.
Right.
Black Panther Party posters and the assassination of Martin Luther King and all the other assassinations that happened and My Lai massacre. In fact, nobody comes into the office without me showing them the My Lai massacre poster because that was one of the posters I considered changed world history because it helped change the opinion of the U.S. population to become from believing what the U.S. government said about the war is winnable and we're fighting the good war, which was a total fantasy. And here they saw a massacre that was done by U.S. troops with our tax dollars, and it really changed their attitude. And Carlos, what you're talking about also, the I think what we need to do with the posters also is understand the differences between the myths and the realities. One
Right.
of the, and one of the um, issues that Nancy raised was bra burning, and I've actually heard that that was a concept that a journalist came up with that never really happened until the journalist wrote about it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it would be interesting to find out in that case which came first, the chicken or the egg, which came first, the article about bra burning, or if, and it sounds good, it's like there's a lot of expressions like that that take a life of their own. But that's a rabbit hole for a different day. But if anybody has any information about it, when it first was said and what really happened, that would be great to know. You both work with community organizations, and I'm wondering, do they approach you? Do you approach them? Is it some of each? And could you talk, about give some examples of the community organizations that you've worked with? We'll start with Carlos this time.
Yes. I actually, my degree in when I went to university, let me say this. I should say this. During my high school years, there was these two main trends of thought when it became to art. It was like art for art's sake and art having a message or serving a purpose for change. And so, of course, I went for the latter. And I used to get confronted by the teachers saying that wasn't truly art. So I really took it at heart. So I really never pursued like an art career. My degree in the university was actually sociology, social worker, and that's how I became involved with nonprofits organizations. I'm one of the founders of an agency working with like gang youth in the Echo Park area, where I was doing silkscreen workshops and also doing murals with youth. So that was sort of my beginning of getting of doing community work. Um, um, El Centro del Pueblo actually was a nonprofit agency that was funded through office was it OCJP, Office of Criminal Justice and Delinquent Prevention Planning. Um, and it was kind of like a favor. Uh, there was two agencies that got a grant, one in the Crenshaw area and one the Echo Park, because mostly some of the money was going to those communities where like East LA, and so they tried to do these two satellite programs. Um, it only the funding only lasted for a year and a half, and so after that we had already established a rapport with the community. So we went as politically active as we went on unemployment and kept the center going. And we began there, and we started all kinds of different programs and got grants and stuff. So that's how my nonprofit agency type of organization started.
Nancy?
yeah, I had to write it down, and actually I can't because there are too many. Uh, I have worked with all kinds of agencies and all kinds of um, groups. Um, I, to get a job in San Francisco, I started with the Asian American Bilingual Center. I mean, at that time when there was nothing going on really, everything is a first. Everything is an advocacy organization to me because they weren't, they were trying to do bilingual education back then when, we take things for granted now, but that was a very radical idea. Children's Book Press was a radical idea to actually print children's books that relate to people of color or children of color. But I've worked with a lot of arts cultural organizations. But as my silk screening got publicized, the posters were out there. I got requests to do more posters from groups from uh, women's organizations like Asian Women's Shelter, International Women's Day, um, organizations, Oakland Perinatal Care, um, Women's Economic Agenda Project, which you showed the poster of, and then political fundraisers for political prisoners, AIDS organizations, uh, like that, on and on and on. Because I announced that I would only work for nonprofit organizations, and that's when all the nonprofit organizations realized that they could have a silkscreen poster. And the other thing I announced was that I wouldn't charge them very much if they left me alone to do whatever I wanted to do. So, one of your questions was how much say do these organizations have with my work? And most of the time, they didn't have any say. I mean, we talked about the idea, but in terms of the actual doing of the artwork, for whatever they needed for. Um, it was all my design, and sometimes they wouldn't even see it till it's finished. And as a result, I didn't, the exchange was that I wouldn't charge them that much. And I got my own portfolio out of that too. So it's kind of a win-win because they helped me publicize my art and I helped publicize their cause.
Yeah.
What in the earlier conversation that you and I had, Nancy, and because we did use the poster for the Women's Economic Agenda Project,
Mhm.
and I had asked you, and you could even repeat the answer. Did they see your image first and then put the words, or did they give you the words and say, and then whatever you wanted to do to illustrate the words? So it's kind of which came first in that sense, because you had mentioned that without the words, it's an art piece. With the words, it's a political piece.
Yes, it started as an art piece. I had joined Mission Graphica because they had this beautiful machine, silk screening machine that I wanted to use. And that was the first poster I did there as an experiment. Um, and so I did this mother and child image, and they saw it and wanted it for their poster. Um, and so I put the words down and they used it. And then it becomes, for that purpose. A same image was also used for the 2000 census. So that image became replicated in different languages with different words telling people to be counted for the census. So that one image has many different purposes. It became a T-shirt, became posters for this and that. And that's where a lot of my work is. That the image is general enough that it can be used multiple times or repurposed. And so that's how that goes. Sometimes it starts with the words and then I remove the words and then it becomes my image. You know,
I
it
think
goes.
that if we could paraphrase, and you could probably say it better than I can, because we showed the image really quickly in the beginning. The image of the mother and child that we're talking about says if women were paid the same wages of men for the same job, something half the people living in poverty would, or half the families living in poverty would not. Some is that that's very rough, very
Before.
loose.
It is awkwardly written, but it was their language. I try not to change the organization's language. Basically, if we were paid the same wages as men, we wouldn't have to be so poor, you know, that kind of sentiment. And it's a real reality
Still,
today.
still, right. How many years ago did you do that poster?
That was 1987.
87. So we're talking almost 30 years ago. And
Hmm.
it's still relevant. It's
Hmm.
still true.
Yeah.
Have either of you encountered censorship? Let's start with Carlos here because you mentioned earlier if you they found you with those posters in your car. Oh, well, I think one time you got in trouble for that.
Yeah. got arrested. Yeah, historically, historically, as we were talking about community engagement, I think that was I was very lucky to sort of start with community because it added to my art. But I must say, just as a historical fact, early on when the mural movement started happening, late '60s, early '70s, many of the funding art institutions were not sensitive or not culturally relevant to the needs of our communities. They always considered our art more like protest art or folkloric art or poor art for poor people in order to very conveniently disqualify us from serious funding sources. So we had to become very self-dependent and depend on your nonprofits and your community agencies. And so we had to kind of develop certain very non-traditional approaches to education, find methodologies, and we just tried to sell the idea or get funding. But I used to get funding being a social worker and a gang worker. I would try to sell the idea to more humanitarian type of funding rather than art funding by selling the idea of we're putting more emphasis on the process rather than the product. So not necessarily to sell the art, but here we're going to get rival gang members to work together on this mural project, thereby curtailing gang warfare, thereby curtailing graffiti, and making them look like working partners for a better society rather than enemies, the way they see us on the streets. So I have to say that historically. So yeah. Anyway, it relates to uh, yeah to how we used to get prevented from doing imagery or get attacked to our imagery. Anyway.
But I want to hear about the time you got arrested.
Oh, the time I got arrested, I was doing some posters of and I guess it was the Vietnam War, a little bit after Chicano moratorium, and I had posters in my car. And of course, without my name, you never put your name on them, but you still had those posters in the car. So I got stopped, and because having those posters, I got arrested. I didn't have any warrants or anything like that, but still, just because of having those posters, I was taken to jail. I was asked where I got them. The posters were so effective that we used to put them up. We used to do like as youth. We used to organize these what we used to call sniping brigades. Right, that we were like it was just bunch of kids, 3 o'clock in the morning, going out and sniping with using that wheat paste, and going out and bombarding the community on the event that was going to happen or the issue. But and of course we would have to be careful not to get busted. Um, but it was very effective, very effective to get the word out.
Do we have any of the
So
posters that you got arrested for?
do I what? I'm sorry.
Does
Do
this, I'm going to sneeze. Hold on a sec.
the image of that poster that I got arrested for? I do not have an image of that poster. I would love to have one. Basically, the poster said it had a pretty radical image. Around those days, some of the Black Panthers had the saying "off the pig" or all this kind of stuff, "power to the people." So it had those type of lettering, and it had like a brown beret and a Black Panther with an arm, and like if they had just gone safari hunting, and in the bottom of their feet they had a pig. So it was pretty radical. So and so that was the image that those posters had. Yeah.
And Nancy, we were talking about an incident that you had as well. So what kind of experience have you had with censorship?
I find that uh, dead uh, dead people don't fare well in terms of acceptance. I had a poster that was originally done for um, in solidarity with what was happening in El Salvador. There was a Salvadorian woman holding a dead child and screaming right toward uh, the viewer. And just the words "no more." Um, um, so it was pretty direct, but the baby was definitely dead, and it was part of a show that was being put up at Watsonville City Hall. It went up and it was immediately taken down, and I think it was just too much for show at City Hall. Um, I have taken that poster though, because around that time, that the time that I did it, that was going on. But later on, when the Gulf War happened, and suddenly there was spontaneous marches in the street, I changed the title to "No More," and I put that poster, the same poster, on a stick, and took it to a march. And that was another use of that poster, the same image, but not in City Hall. It will not go well.
Also, I've been dominating the questioning, but if you have questions for each other, feel free. So that's open that up to you as well. What have other artists, whether poster makers or fine artists, influenced your work, inspired you and your practice?
I think for me, definitely the Cuban posters, especially I was exposed to the Cuban posters in the 70s, and it's their style that is very my style is reminiscent of their style. It was a style that we kind of all kind of gravitated toward. Rupert Garcia started in that same flat, direct style. But I loved the Cuban posters. I liked I liked Matisse. You know, it made me really favor the flat image. But I also liked the work of Katie Kowitz,
Mhm.
uh, for her compassion. And I think that features in a lot of my artwork, that compassionate piece. And even Mary Cassatt had an influence, because I do a lot of mother and child themes. So, and of course, my contemporaries like, Esther Hernandez and Yolanda Lopez and people that you have shown in your slideshow. We all knew each other and we all kind of, inspired each other. But in terms of my style, it's definitely the computer posters.
Yeah. Carlos?
And for me, yes, definitely. Well, there was a lot of influences, a lot of Latin American, Cuban influences, a lot of your like Black Panther influences, that kind of stuff. A lot of anti-imperialist type of stuff. Back then, the Vietnam War, China was coming out with a lot of anti-war against Vietnam imagery. So yeah, there was a lot of influences, a lot of influences.
So one of the things that Nancy and I were talking about earlier is now the internet or the digital, what they're calling it, a revolution. I'm not sure that's really the right word, but certainly digital art production is almost overwhelming. And it's also a little easier. You don't need to be a great artist to come up with a digital image. And I'm just wondering how has digital, have you incorporated digital? Are you rejecting digital? Both of you started out with silk screening, which is a very skill required, hands-on, labor intensive. I think one of the reasons that silk screen was so popular is that it was very inexpensive. It was labor intensive, but inexpensive. where if you had an offset image, you needed to do a lot more and it was expensive. And you had to have a shop to do it. Silkscreen you could do yourself. Like stencil is another way you can other of labor intensive, but you can do it yourself. And so I was just, how has the digital, has the digital impacted your work? And if so, how?
Well, for me, you know, age had a factor. When I got out of being director of Kearney Street Workshop, silkscreen was already changing. We no longer worked with the toxic oil inks, oil-based inks, and everybody was transitioning to water-based. But I liked the oil-based inks, but I also found that it was harder for me to do. And then definitely now I'm in my 70s, it's very hard to do multiple silk screens of posters. I found that I didn't have to because you have offset printing. We have all kinds of cheap ways to get the message out. So I started doing one of a kinds. But with those one of a kinds, I would still gravitate toward the silkscreen image until finally I started scanning the sketch into the computer. I'm not technical really, and my knowledge of Photoshop is like Photoshop version 4 or something like that. And that's all I have. But I wanted a way to get the same look of the silkscreen aesthetic without all that work. Um, it's a different kind of work when you work with the computer, and don't think it's better, but it's better for me physically to work on a computer than to, laboriously do whatever I do even with a silkscreen machine. So but I would cut the ruby lith. I would, do the shapes the same way as if I were preparing for a silkscreen, then scan each piece in and then put them together in Photoshop and then plug in the colors and that last piece that was shown in my section, Catalina's World, was all done that way. It was the colors were on the computer and everything, but the original image was cut through Ruby Lith. So it's kind of a hybrid thing that I do because my knowledge of Photoshop, I understand one thing and suddenly it's gone to something else. So I can't get it, but I appreciate it being there so I could still continue this work.
I wonder if you could describe that piece for us, because it took my breath away when I saw it, and I only saw it fairly recently. It's a takeoff on the very famous Andrew Wyeth, Christina's World, of the woman sitting in a field and the farmhouse is at a distance and she's not able to walk there. But want to describe your appropriation of that image.
Yeah, it was a parody on the same uh, painting, but with a very different focus. And it's about a woman from either Mexico or a Latin American country trying to get to this country, and going through her experience is going through hell, lots of suffering to try to get to America, as a comment on the border issues that we have. And she's in the same pose, and there's an American flag in the distance, so she's going toward America. But there is a lot of skull bones showing that people have suffered and died trying to cross the border. So that was my take on it.
Yeah, no, it's a powerful, that powerful piece. Carlos, you have something to contribute to this?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm really really old school. I my my influence with digital kind of imagery and Photoshop is more in the mural stuff. My left still screen years and years and years ago. And again, it was because of the toxic chemicals we used to use. I used to be in a garage doing the posters, and I used to catch myself coming out of the garage and actually see fumes coming out of my mouth. So I said, I'm going to kill myself. That's what I went into murals. But yeah, most of my imagery is in a little hand cut type of, which has a nice effect. Has a very, very nice effect, very unique effect that I don't even think digital imagery or Photoshop could reproduce.
So we're at a very, in my life, and I think I'm older than the two of you, um, the most dangerous time I've ever lived through. And art monies for the arts are being cut unless you do stuff that is approved by the administration and the universities and the museums, or many of them, not all of them. I think the most gutsy out there museum in LA that I know of certainly is the Japanese American National Museum, who came straight out to say, we are not backing down on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's who we are. And I don't know too many of other universities. I can't think of any other universities that are putting it that straightforward, or museums. I'm not saying there aren't any. I'm saying they're not as obvious. And so, how are you dealing with this current political times? What can artists? How can artists help what's going on right now? Um, give people hope, give people energy, give people direction and activism. I mean, you've certainly been doing that your whole creative lives, but I think it's more critical now than ever. And how do we get the message out there?
Who wants to go first?
You can go for it.
Oh,
Well, I like again, what I try to do, I'm a retired artist, so I have nothing to lose. So I'm kind of going back to my old roots, and and put the messages straight forward. Uh, I think that I've been pretty lucky. Again, because of my involvement with community agencies and community engagement in the arts has allowed me to still do funding, or still get my stuff funded, because again, it's not just the product, but how I engage the community, and sometimes that helps bring in some funding. So sometimes they seek me out to do like either workshops for kids, workshops for senior citizens. So that's been helpful. So in terms of what with the current administration, just passing the word around, and I'm still doing a lot of political type of posters, anti-Trump posters, hands off Venezuela, hands off Latin America, all this help, hands off the Palestine situation, things like that. So you try to get the message across that normally gets neglected in the public eye arena. So that's how I try to do the art. Try to put things out there that normally get issues that get normally get neglected on the public eye. Public eye. Makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you,
Oh,
Nancy.
thank you.
well, I think lately I've been concentrating more on getting people together to toward the society we want to see. Because I think that's the flip side of protest art is you're also going toward what you want as opposed to, or in addition to protesting what you don't want. So for the past 14 years, I've been doing three-dimensional art in the form of floor mandalas that bring community together. toward a certain issue or a certain well, it's hard to describe the mandala because it has so many uses. It can tell a story of a whole community, and it can bring people around to heal from grief or whatever they're feeling, and it can also be a rallying point for we're all focused on one center. I should explain what a mandala is it means circle, and it's a series of concentric circle items that we place down on the floor in a way that tells a story. And it's been very effective in community building. Community building, I think, is the key to everything because is if you keep building community, you're also building consciousness. And the thing that really gives me hope, and that I refer to often, is the Monks for Peace. There's a group of Buddhist monks who actually walked from Texas with bare feet. They walked from Texas all the way to Washington, D.C. And that's all they did. And they posted every day on social media. But because of that, there are 500 followers of the Monks for Peace. And they have 3.2 million people following their official page and 500 followers on a separate community page. That's a movement. And all the message is peace. And it crosses all boundaries. They don't care if it's political boundaries, religious boundaries, everything. If you follow that story, is the unification of everybody, no matter where you are or what you believe in, you're all focused toward one thing, which is peace in the world. And it keeps growing every day. So that gives me a lot of hope. And it points out that all the issues we're talking about are not just partisan issues. They concern everybody. Climate, whatever it is, concerns everybody. And if you can get that message out, however way you can, that will be the beacon for the future.
Hey,
Hey, I can't think of a better way of transitioning
all
this.
set.
Well said. Thank you, Nancy. Do either of you want to add anything that I didn't ask or follow up on anything before, I don't know if there are any questions from the audience. Summer, Emily, this is the time to.
I am not seeing any questions from the audience as of yet, but yes, this is the time if folks have any questions or comments, things to share with our panelists. Let's see.
I'm just gonna, while we're waiting, I'm just gonna say the exhibition is up through July 6th. So will be up just a few days after, a couple of days after the July 4th celebration of the founding, the 250th anniversary. And in many ways, this exhibition is a counter to what we're going to be seeing coming out constantly. In fact, it's already started about, how great everything has been for the last 250 years when we all know better. And the posters certainly are documenting that's and a wish, a dream. And the title of this webinar was California Dreamin', because it's our contention that the it's never been the dream. The dream is, I think, what was it, Malcolm X or Martin Luther King? I don't see an American dream, I see American nightmare. And that the artists have been at the forefront of trying to make the dream a reality, and California artists have been at the forefront of the folks who have really been using their art to to look at the problems, to look at the issues and come up with solutions. I think what you just said, Nancy, about it's not enough to say what we're against. We really need to come up with the institutions and the models that we want. Because it's easy to say this is bad. It's hard to say what we want instead.
I also want to mention one thing, or maybe I've said it, but I think is really important to cross cultures. You know, I know people start off, and I did too, focusing on our own ethnic group or, our own situation. Um, but sooner or later, you have to build across cultures, build solidarity, um, to recognize our commonality with everybody, and that's how you build a bigger movement. Otherwise, you're talking in the same circles all the time. You know, I think that's really important.
Well said.
Well,
I,
yeah, no, it's I think it's a lesson that unfortunately we keep learning.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think I mean some of the and I think we've come a long way. I mean, just looking at the media, it's certainly not representative enough.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
I remember when I was growing up, the 50s, all you saw was white men on TV, on the news, that's all you saw.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's certainly very different now than when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But there's also a backlash because of that.
Hmm.
And the fact that, I mean, what I just heard the other day, that every mention of January 6th, the insurrection has been taken off of every federal website. It's still
Oof.
there. You can still find it, but you will not find it on anything that the government is supporting. And that's terrifying because they're trying to get us back to divide and conquer. They're trying to get us back to a place that we had rejected for good reason. And I don't think they're not going to succeed, as long as there's artists like you and there's a whole younger generation of artists. I wish we had them here, but we tried. But I think that you can't go back. You can try to make us go back, but once you've tasted the fullness and the richness and the excitement of looking at the world a new way, you're not going to put it back to a more rigid, restrictive connection.
I think
So
it's really important to bridge also the age gap. Because like, just listening to Carlos, you know, there's a richness that the older generation, including myself now as an elder, you know, we have, we hold that institutional memory that pretty soon people will forget that there was an age before computers, for instance, or the battles that we fought. And too often I see, you know, things being done that we had done before, but act like they've just invented it. And so it's kind of that exchange. On the other hand, we have so much to learn from the younger generation. I
Yeah.
just can't believe where they're going, and some of it I don't understand, but it's exciting to see what they are doing too. So I would bridge that gap too. The whole essential message is to stay open
Mhm.
to everything. That's I think that's the key to being progressive is to just be open-minded and accepting of, don't be closed-minded or narrow-minded. Accept all the possibilities.
yeah.
This is a great transition into, we do have a question from an audience member. The question is, what advice do you have for young people hoping to make political art? Which I think is a great transition based on what we were just talking about.
Go ahead, Nancy.
You want Nancy to take that one?
Nancy, you
Right.
can. I'm going to go to the restroom while you answer that. By the way, Nancy, it was a real pleasure. Anyway, go ahead. You answer. They have a question.
But can you repeat that question again? Because I want to delve a little more into it.
Sure. The question is, what advice do you have for young people hoping to make political art today?
Um, just make it. I I mean, we didn't ask anybody for permission or anything. We did it because to me, political art is just really expressing what you care about. And we all care about the same things, the environment. We care about, we care about our neighbor. We care about having good jobs. We all care for the same things. And so, whether you say it's political art or just plain, you know, expressing what you care about, just do it as your art form. The question I have from a lot of younger people is how do we make a living doing it? And that's a harder one to deal with. And I have no quick answers for that, except that there has been sacrifice along the way, and yet the riches of doing community art or doing political art override anything that I might have missed because I didn't make that much money. So anyway, I'm segueing, but maybe Carlos can say something more.
Um, No, I think that the new generation is very much being active. There's a lot of I see a lot of stuff that surprises me. Of course, the issues kind of tend to vary a little. I mean, now I mean, now the more the environmental justice is more of an issue where when we were growing up, more it was more your police brutality, your war kind of issues, but I see a lot of stuff. I think the new generation. I think we just need to collaborate with the new generations.
Mm.
Uh, 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 I don't. I don't. As elders or as veterans of art, I don't see myself as a leader to them, but more collaborator. We learn from each other. So, yeah, I think and more collaboration, not just between age, but gender and ethnicities. So, yeah, as Nancy was talking, I'm thinking about the old times when we used to collaborate with other groups. Like I was doing a lot of collaboration with trade unions in Birmingham, Alabama, and anti Ku Klux Klan movement against the racism in the Klan, and I miss those days. I miss that because you get to learn from other people. You get to learn, their immediate cultures and traditions and things like that. So I kind of miss that. I would welcome those opportunities ever again.
Yeah, I also would add that we're not artists in a vacuum. If we're political or poster artists, we're actually out there with the folks doing whatever they are doing. We're marching with them, or we're in whatever capacity, soup kitchens, or passing out chicken with Glide Memorial Church. We're out there in the community. That's what it means to be a community artist. So I would say is just the art part is just the way you express it, but we're all part of the same um, the same movement, whether we're artists or not. Not separating ourselves as political artists. We're part of the human race, the movement. toward what we want to see.
Well, that's, I think, an incredibly beautiful and succinct way of ending this webinar. I want to thank you both. This has been really, um, I've learned a lot, and I'm very, very appreciative of the work you've done your entire lives and are continuing to do. I think it's inspiring. The center certainly wouldn't be what it is without people like you doing the work that you do. That's why we're here. I want to thank again our funders, the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs, the Los Angeles County Arts and Culture, the Getty, and Esperanza Community Housing, we have been in a partnership with the Esperanza Community Housing for over 15 years. We have an exhibit there every spring that's there from May into July. So I encourage you to visit them. They're doing amazing work dealing with the location, even though it's so close to these major institutions, museums, universities, they are still a food desert. They're located in a food desert, in a cultural desert, and it is also a target of the gentrification that's going to uproot the community and who knows where they're going to go unless they continue to be successful in fighting them off. So we're very grateful that we have this long-term partnership. The exhibition again is Graphic Resistance, 7 Decades of California Posters for Peace and Justice. The Center for the Study of Political Graphics website is politicalgraphics.org. You can find more information. You can see the whole exhibition there if you live too far away to come and visit, but it's always different looking at it in person. You can find more posters by both Nancy and Carlos on our website. We have over 33,000 searchable posters now, so more than a third of our archive has been digitized in the last 5 years and is online for research and for looking at. And Emily and Summer, did I leave anything out? Thank you both. Thank you. I want to thank my staff is amazing, Emily and Lisa and Summer, who this work couldn't happen if they weren't doing you know, they weren't doing everything that they do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you, Nancy, too. It was
Yes.
my pleasure. Hopefully, one of these days we could have lunch or something, maybe with the whole group or something.
And actually, I have one more plug. The people go to demonstrations or know people who have posters in their attic or in their bedrooms or something. That's how the Center for the Study of Political Graphic has grown as quickly as it has, with so much representation from all over the world and all over different communities. And people donate. 95% of the posters in our collection has been donated by people who are activists, our organizers, our teachers, our students, our artists. And so we collect anything that's made in a multiple with an overt political content. So I encourage you, I welcome you to make posters, donate posters, write to us and let us know what you've got. And we also have a lot of traveling exhibitions that can go to your school, your community center. So let's keep the conversation going. And thank you very much. And stay safe and stay creative.